the kind of atmosphere that the church was birthed out of. It was birthed out of, an insurrection. I mean, the Roman Empire, like it was birthed out of this difficulty. And maybe there wasn't pandemics, and maybe there wasn't, all of the things that are going on, but they were in an economic downhaul. Like Jesus, literally the Jews thought that Jesus was going to come and lead a rebellion. Right. They were waiting for that. So the church was birthed out of this. And so it's actually, this could be our finest moment. This could be an opportunity for us. And so that's why we have to stop feeding the fear and actually feed ourselves on what is actually true. Yeah. And so in Mark 4, it's one of the stories that everybody's heard, but it's when Jesus stills the storm. And I'm just going to actually read it because it's just really good and it's short. And it says, later that day, after it grew dark, Jesus said to his disciples, let's cross over to the other side of the lake. After they had sent the crowd away, they shoved off from the shore with him, and he had been teaching because he's been teaching from that boat. There were other boats, and they sailed with them. Suddenly, as they were crossing the lake, a ferocious tempest arose, and the violent winds and waves were crashing into the boat until it was all swamped. But Jesus was calmly sleeping in the stern, resting on a cushion. So they shook him awake, saying, "Teacher, do you even care that we're all going to die?" Fully awake, he rebuked the storm, and he shouted to the sea, "Hush, calm down." All at once, the wind stopped and howling, and the water became perfectly calm. Then he turned to his disciples and said to them, "Why are you so afraid? Haven't you learned to trust yet?" But they were overwhelmed with fear and awe and said to one another, "Who is this man who has such authority that even the winds and the waves obey him?" So the reason I love that story, one, is we are totally the disciples. Especially right now. And I get it. Like, first of all, I don't want to make light of this.
Right.
It's scary. Like the thought of this is scary. And I can imagine the disciples, they're watching these waves come over the shore and you're scared, right? I mean, it is a scary thing. And they go to the one that they know that he was going to know what to do. They go to Jesus.
And it's like they're looking around in the middle of this. It calls it a tempest in this translation, this crazy storm, and they have the facts.
The facts are.
But the thing is, these guys knew the water.
Yeah, they were farmers. I mean, not farmers. They were fishermen.
3 or 4 of them at least. That was their lifestyle, and they're terrified.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. I think
really
that,
good.
They actually understood what was happening, and that's why they were scared. They got the facts. They understood, I know how this works. Too much water inside boat bad. Like, we get it, But here's the thing. Their emotions were very valid. They just weren't based in truth.
That's good.
Because we're all allowed to have our emotional reaction. There's no shame. There's no shame in the kingdom anyway. And we could talk about that for days.
Let's not
do
that.
We won't. But there's no shame. Okay, so emotions can be completely valid because you see all the facts. You may even understand more deeply than other people. You may be in the medical profession. You may have loved, listen, there's no shame in having the emotional reaction you've had. But the reason we need to consciously go through that emotion, let it run its course, but don't let it run you. That's the fork in the road. Don't choose fear, choose faith, because faith is in a kingdom that is above the facts.
Right.
The truth is above what the facts are. And these guys knew what was going to happen. But here's the thing. You have authority in whatever storm you can sleep through.
So that's what I was going to say. So what's interesting about this is that I feel like we see a picture of the Old Testament and the New Testament literally coming together a little bit. And what I mean by that is that the disciples, I feel like that's a lot of who we are sometimes, is that we're scared of the waves. We see all these things and we go to Jesus, right? Yeah. And of course we go to Jesus. That's the important thing. Yeah. They knew that Jesus had the answer. They had no clue what Jesus was going to do, but they knew that Jesus had the answer. What was so interesting to me, and exactly what Zach said, was that Jesus was asleep. How in the world was he asleep in the middle of all of this? It doesn't make any sense. It's because in his reality, it was peaceful. There were no waves in his reality. There was no panic in his reality because he knows where he sits. He sits at the right hand of the Father in heaven. That is his citizenship. And so for us, we see him literally get up, not panic, go to the storm and tell the storm to stop. If the storm was from Jesus and he stopped the storm, then that is a house divided.
Yeah.
Which means that not every storm is from the Lord. So I would like to propose that this virus is not from Jesus. So I think in that, what we need to do is Jesus is a model to what we can live, right? So if he's the perfect theology, that's who he is. It's an invitation of what our lives can look like. If we can have peace in the middle of this storm, then we can have the authority to speak to the storm and tell it to be still. That is what this is all about.
Yeah.
It's all about feeding the right thing, not feeding fear, but feeding faith.